The girl, my childhood sweetheart, tearfully confessed that her stepfather had molested her. He gathered a few boys from the compound and went to confront the man with knives in hand. I stopped this absurd action, and in the end, they used their family's influence to send the stepfather to prison, but the girl couldn't bear her mother's resentment and the pity of others, and she took her own life. My childhood sweetheart was despondent for a while, then returned to attending classes with me. The day before the bar exam, he glared at me with resentment. If you hadn't meddled and stopped us, how could she have died? I was drugged unconscious and locked up with a group of intoxicated thugs, bullied to death. I was reborn on the day my childhood friend took his buddies to play the hero and save the damsel in distress. I did not intervene, watching coldly as they once again bought knives and strode confidently toward the dead end I had laid out. That old bastard is worse than a dog or a pig. I'll tear him to pieces. Yufeng gritted his teeth and slammed his fist on the desk, causing the classroom to echo with the table's groan, daring to bully Anlin. Do they even have me in their eyes? If you're my brothers, follow me. I'll make sure he dies in a way he'll regret. The brothers all looked at me, as if seeking my opinion. I couldn't help but laugh. Why look at me? I'm just Yufeng's childhood friend, not his girlfriend. We're all adult college students now. You should decide for yourselves what's appropriate and what's not. Handle your own affairs however you see fit. I won't interfere. Yufeng looked at me with some astonishment. Jiang Jiqiao, are you really not going to intervene? You won't stop me, right? Stop him. Why would I stop him? Should I rush to meet the same fate as in my previous life, where I ended up dead and dismembered? In my previous life, in the same classroom, under the same circumstances. I immediately stopped him after hearing Yufeng's words. Right now, what's most needed is probably calm. Whether Anlin's stepfather is guilty should be left to the law to decide. None of us are judges, but once a murder is committed, Yufeng will definitely be found guilty, and no matter what, it's not the right choice. My reasoning left everyone in silence. Finally, he glared with reddened eyes. Fine, I won't take action this time. Immediately after, Yufeng used his grandfather's influence to nail his stepfather to the pillar of shame. However, no one expected that on the day his stepfather was sentenced, Anlan also hanged herself. Before taking her own life, she left a letter, expressing the impact the exposure of the incident had on her. The mother's scolding and the judgmental gazes of the world made her feel too ashamed to go on living. After reading the letter, Yufeng sat before her coffin for an entire night. I went to console him, because we had already done everything we could. In the darkness, Yufeng suddenly stood up and held me tightly. Chiao, I've already lost Anlin. I don't want to lose you too. From now on, let's walk this path together. I wept silently, never expecting that it would be my childhood sweetheart who finally succeeded. From then on, he accompanied me through the exam preparations with meticulous care, but just one day before the bar exam, I was suddenly drugged and locked inside a massive dog cage. Surrounding me were a group of hungry thugs. Yufeng, I desperately shook the bars, reaching out my hand to him, but as soon as he turned around, he pressed the burning cigarette butt into the palm of my hand. How does it feel? Pretty hopeless, isn't it, Jiang, the top student? Now, you can finally understand Anlin's feelings. Don't worry, I won't bully you. I'm afraid I'd dirty my shoes with a cold-blooded creature like you. Let them have a good time with you. Only then did I realize that he had hated me all along for stopping him from killing. But did he truly understand the whole story? Can a person casually decide the life and death of another? In a daze, my thoughts drifted back to the scene where Yufeng was enthusiastically laying out his plan. De Gang, you go find the most suitable knife-selling shop, make sure it's far away and there are no surveillance cameras around. Xiao Hai, you're in charge of preparing hats and masks for everyone. Don't leave any trace of shopping. When it came to killing, his mind became both excited and meticulous. After he finally finished speaking, I quietly pressed the stop button on the voice recorder. Jiang Jiqiao, you go too. You're responsible for luring. Yufeng turned his head, his eyes filled with malice. What am I going to do? This is your business. Yufeng, however, wasn't about to let me off the hook. More people make it easier to get caught. You lure him to a more secluded spot first. After saying that, he leaned in a little closer, resting his hands on my desk. You wouldn't want to let Anlan down, would you? His underlings all turned their expectant gazes toward me. I looked at Yufeng's face, already knowing what he was scheming. My father is a prosecutor renowned throughout the city, and my grandfather is an even more prominent figure in the legal and political circles. If the truth ever comes to light, as long as I'm dragged into it, my family will surely protect me. His thinking is just as worldly and cunning as his grandfather's. Our families were once close friends for generations, and our grandfathers were classmates at the University of Political Science and Law, as close as brothers. It is said that back then, my grandfather came from a poor family, and it was often Yufeng's grandfather who stepped in to help him through many cold and hungry years. After graduation, my grandfather entered the court system, while his grandfather entered the political arena, embarking on his official career. At first, they remained in close contact, but gradually, their differences grew more and more pronounced. Finally, when Grandpa saw his old classmate bringing gold bars to the house, his anger could no longer be contained. You mean Zheng, is this your conscience? How dare you try to bribe me with something like this? Old Zheng, don't be so rigid. He waved his hand. This money could be seen as a bribe, but it could also be considered compensation. If you insist on prosecuting young Master Zhang, he will definitely appeal a second time, a third time, until he bankrupts the plaintiff. Seeing that my grandfather remained silent, he added another sentence. Think about it. How many lawsuits can a widow with children afford to fight? But with the pension, how many good years could they live? Sometimes the truth is what truly devours people. Old classmate, be flexible. That was the first major argument between our ancestors. As my father told me, he was only 6 years old at the time. My grandfather still insisted that Mr. Zhang was guilty, but he later provided the victim's widow with a regular assistance fund. My grandfather said that no reason could justify burying the truth. However, Yufeng's grandfather believed that the truth could be rewritten. Obviously, Yufeng thought so too. Sorry, you're mistaken. There's no way I'm getting involved. Suppressing my disgust, I placed the pen case containing the voice recorder into my bag, stood up, and left. No matter what, I would never betray my family's teachings and circumvent the law, because once you start down that path, countless shady deals can be carried out under the guise of justice. Even if Enlin's stepfather is truly as wicked as she says, it still won't do. Just as I reached the classroom door, Yufeng called out to me, Jiang Jiqiao, do you really think I don't know what's on your mind? I know, you're just jealous of Anlin, that's all. You're just upset because I don't like you, aren't you? He walked up behind me with his hands in his pockets, looking rather mocking and brimming with confidence in his own charm, and his lackeys, seizing the moment, started jeering, trying to embarrass me. I was so angry I laughed, furious at him, and even more furious at my own saintly self. Back then, in our youth, Yufeng's family background was still unknown, and he was often beaten up by the boys. I felt sorry for him, so I often stepped in as the class monitor to break up the fights. Over time, everyone started saying that I liked Yufeng and couldn't bear to see him get beaten up. Unexpectedly, Yufeng himself bought into this idea. Later, when he got beaten up, he even told people, Jiang Jiqiao is my wife, who dares to lay a hand on me. This line of reasoning persisted until his family background was exposed and he became the boss, after which it was no longer mentioned. I sneered and raised an eyebrow. Don't forget, I never said I liked you, yet someone, to protect themselves, goes around telling everyone they're my husband. I wonder what they're so afraid of. Years of acting like a bully had made him forget who was begging him in the past. Yufeng's face instantly turned pale and then flushed with anger. Just then, I suddenly received a message. I'm at Chushui Alley, come quickly. My expression changed, and I immediately rushed out of the classroom, turning left and right. I arrived at the entrance of Chushui Alley. I've walked this road since I was a child, and every time, it was my grandfather who brought me here. By now, the sun was already high in the sky, and more vendors were gathering here to sell their goods. A man in sunglasses had been waiting there. Upon seeing me, he quickly approached and pointed toward one of the vendors. Sister Qiao, we've found the person, right there. Following the direction of his finger, I saw a man wearing a military coat and a lei foam cap, quietly sitting in front of a stall, molding dough figurines. Seeing him, my heart still couldn't help but beat faster. I stared motionlessly at the man before me. Sensing my gaze, he looked up and was both surprised and delighted to see me. Xiao Qiao, why did you come alone? It's so cold. He handed me a hot water bottle somewhat awkwardly, busying himself while also reminding me, look at you, your hands are already red from the cold. Come warm them up quickly. I've been so busy lately. I haven't had much time to visit you all. How is your grandfather doing? In my previous life, I never would have imagined that Anlin's stepfather was actually the uncle I had known since childhood. Just last month, he called my grandfather to say that his stepdaughter was preparing to act in a film and needed to raise money for it. The teacher said her acting skills still need improvement, so we can only send her to a small class for further training, but he didn't know that his stepdaughter was already mingling with a new group of second-generation rich kids and had long planned to push him into the abyss from beginning to end. And Lon never told us the truth, not in the previous life, and not in this One either. I remembered the report from the private detective in my previous life. He said that Enlan's stepfather was a craftsman in Tsushui Alley, working tirelessly from dawn to dusk to support the family. Under his careful guidance, Enlan successfully passed the art entrance exam and became a member of the art department at the neighboring college, but as an adult, Anlin began to frequently interfere in the relationships of wealthy young men, hoping to become a rich wife. Her stepfather and mother often scolded her for this. "We worked so hard to raise you, just so you could be someone's mistress. We don't want this dirty money, even if you give it to us." Anlin's stepfather even went so far as to find the wealthy man's original wife, completely shattering Anlin's dream of being a mistress. He had no idea that what awaited him was murder by his stepdaughter. "Brother Fong, my stepfather molested me. I really want to kill him." At that time, Anlan took the initiative to seek out her admirer, Yufeng, for the first time, tearfully begging him for help. Yufeng immediately agreed without hesitation. He wanted to play the hero in front of the beauty and would do whatever she asked. Besides, in his eyes, getting away with murder is as easy as washing his hands. This foolish man still doesn't realize that Anlin sought him out solely to make him do the dirty work. As for love, she wouldn't even spare him a glance. What she wants is a higher-tier second-generation heir, and Yufeng simply can't satisfy her. At that moment, Anlin's stepfather's voice pulled me back to reality. "The hot water bottle has cooled down. Switch to this one." He handed over another one. I quickly waved my hand to decline, but he insisted on giving it to me. In the back and forth, I accidentally knocked his bag over. I bent down to pick it up, and as soon as I reached out, I saw a photo fall out. It was a family portrait of him with Enlan and her daughter. In the photo, Enlan was smiling sweetly with her arms around the couple's shoulders. He saw me, feeling a bit embarrassed yet somewhat proud. "This is my daughter. Isn't she pretty? You haven't met her before, have you?" "I have seen her. How could I not have? In my past life, she not only harmed you but also directly caused my death. In her previous life, in order to have Enlan's stepfather imprisoned, Yufeng did not hesitate to fabricate evidence, proving that the stepfather had engaged in relationships with multiple people. Once the charges were confirmed, what was originally a pure father-daughter relationship turned into something real. To make matters worse, she was later diagnosed with AIDS, with no knowledge of who had transmitted it to her or whom she might have passed it on to. The playboys who contracted the disease simply shifted all the blame onto her. They said she caught it from her stepfather, that she was the one who passed the disease to them. Anlin had no way to defend herself, and all that awaited her was a dead end. When I uncovered this news, Yufeng was still in unbearable pain. Often staring blankly at Enlin's photo, I couldn't bear to shatter his illusion. What was the point of saying all this when the person was already gone? But I never expected that Enlin had already designed my death with her own hands before she died. In her eyes, it was me who stopped Yufeng from killing his stepfather, which forced her to act for real and pushed her into a desperate situation. When I was being bullied by a group of thugs, Yufeng stood outside the cage and said coldly, "You killed Anlin." She already told me in her letter that without your instigation, she would never have died. Only then did I realize that at the end of her suicide note, Anlin had instructed my death, just as she had instructed Yufeng to kill her stepfather. Thinking of this, I sighed and lowered my voice to the delighted man before me. "Uncle, have you seen Orphan?" After class that evening, Yufeng and his group left the classroom in a grand procession. I followed from a distance, watching them get into the car and drive all the way to the entrance of Tsushui Lane. Anlin's stepfather was just about to pack up his stall when he turned around and was blocked by a tall, burly man. By now, the night was deep, and there were no surveillance cameras around Tsushui Lane. Just as the stepfather tried to turn away, he found another group of people blocking his path. "So you're Anlin's stepfather?" Yufeng asked with a cold, insincere smile, his hands clasped behind his back. What are you trying to do?" my stepfather asked warily, while subtly reaching his hand toward his pocket. Unexpectedly, Yufeng immediately noticed his little move. With a swift counter-grab, Yufeng caught him, and my stepfather was still clutching his phone tightly. Yufeng shoved him against the wall, slamming his elbow against it several times until the phone fell to the ground. "Oh, you even know how to record? Impressive," he sneered, immediately deleting the recording and stomping on the phone a few times. My heart instantly leaped into my throat. The recording is crucial evidence. Once this link is missing from the chain of evidence, we will definitely be in a much more passive position later on. But I no longer have time to lament. Yufeng and the others swarmed forward, surrounding him with punches and kicks, the knives in their hands still gleaming. When the first person raised his knife, the bystanders I had arranged for all appeared. Yufeng cursed under his breath and quickly led his people away from The scene, after watching my stepfather being carried into the ambulance, I hurried home under the cover of night. Before I even stepped inside, I could hear a commotion. Yufeng's grandfather was sitting on the sofa, trembling with anger. Jiang Shanhua, say it again. Will you save him or not? My grandfather turned his back to him and uttered two icy words. Won't save him. Don't forget, old man, you coughed angrily. If it weren't for me back then, you would have starved to death. Now that my grandson is in trouble, how can you be so heartless? My grandfather still had his back turned to him. Your grandson brought this on himself. He broke the law, and he must face the consequences. At most, I can only ask the prison guards to keep an eye on him so he doesn't get beaten senseless. Upon hearing this, old master Yu grew even angrier. He was about to say something more, but Grandpa waved his hand dismissively. We have nothing more to discuss. Xing, see our guests out. My mother stood up upon hearing this and silently escorted old Master Yu to the door. Fine, he said, trembling as he leaned on his cane. If you won't save him, I'll find another way to rescue my grandson. The moment I brushed past him, I felt a ball of fire flying toward me. Grandpa Yufeng glared at me resentfully, as if blaming me for not stopping his grandson from causing trouble. Stop him. In my previous life, when I was locked in a dog cage, he didn't stop his precious grandson either. Back then, I was locked in the basement of Yufeng's house. The old man only came down to take a glance before hurriedly leaving. I called out to him in the darkness, begging him to discipline his grandson, but the old man also turned his back on me, leaving behind a lukewarm remark. He's just like that. I can't control him either. If you can't even manage him, what can I possibly do to stop him? Wait to be thrown into the dog cage again. That night, I felt a bit dizzy and disoriented. Anlin's stepfather still hasn't woken up. The police have already cordoned off the scene and started collecting evidence. I opened my phone and searched for related news, but found nothing related to Yufeng. It seems the Yu family has really gone all out, even sealing off media relations tightly. It wasn't until the third day that I finally saw a piece of news. The artisan was attacked, and the suspect has been apprehended, suspected of acting impulsively due to drunkenness. Upon clicking in, I saw several people who looked like thugs, all with their heads lowered. None of them were from Yufeng's group. The old man has indeed found a scapegoat. I know that this battle between good and evil has only just begun. Anlin's stepfather had not yet awakened. Anlin and her mother stood by the bedside with tear-filled eyes, but as soon as she turned away, Anlin cursed bitterly. Useless trash that can't accomplish anything but only messes things up. What she wanted was to eliminate the problem once and for all, but she never expected Yufeng to just step in and then walk away. Yufeng was completely unaware of this. He was still secretly bragging to me during the break. See, if I wanted to kill someone, it would be easier than stepping on an ant. I pretended not to hear, but I pressed the record button again and again. A week later, when Anlan's stepfather finally woke up, the first thing he did was call the police. It was Yufeng. Yufeng brought people to hack me. He even said he wanted to kill me. He grew angrier as he spoke, but everyone exchanged uneasy glances. The thug had already confessed. The matching knife stained with blood and fingerprints, the blood-stained clothes, the bloody shoes, everything was so seamless. He wanted to say more, but the doctor stopped him. Sir, even if what you're saying is true, who are the Yu family? How can we possibly compete with them? But he wouldn't listen. Not only did he refuse to listen, but he also posted everything online. Public opinion cannot be used to judge a case, but it can be used to seek justice. When he appeared on the video app, covered in wounds and holding up his ID card, the internet erupted. Yufeng is a son of the Yu family. How could he do something like this? The comment section buzzed with discussions, and some kind-hearted people urged him to delete the video quickly, warning him to beware of retaliation from the Yu family. That family holds grudges deeply. They kill without batting an eye, so be careful. But as the video spread wider and wider, more and more of Yufeng's scandals began to be uncovered. Some said that Yufeng had once bullied him, all because the girl Yufeng liked had a crush on him. Others claimed that Yufeng had once forced him to eat sand, and later used a lackey to take the blame. Yufeng watched all of this unfold before his eyes, but he didn't care in the slightest. Say it, go ahead and say it. I'd like to see who can do anything to me. This was what he said to his brothers during the class meeting. I listened from the side, secretly laughing to myself. As soon as class ended, I headed straight to another bar. Out of the 10 bars in the city, I had already visited 8. Whether the case could be overturned depended entirely on the next 2. The bartender saw me and thought I was there to drink, but to his surprise, I got straight to the point. Excuse me, I need to see the footage from the evening of November 20th. Earlier, by questioning the people around the thugs, I had already tracked their movements, I learned that the leader of the group had returned reeking of alcohol and mentioned that he had been to a bar, and so, I examined all the surveillance footage from the bars, with the sole purpose of providing him with an alibi and forcing the police to search for the suspect anew. During my investigation, Anlin's stepfather continued to send videos one after another, and Yufeng's suspicion grew with each passing rumor. Many people provided information, claiming they had seen Yufeng near the crime scene or had heard him threaten to kill someone. However, all of this still lacked the support of physical evidence. At that moment, I was watching the surveillance footage and suddenly called for a pause. Zoom in further. I stared intently at the few people at the front desk. When the image was enlarged, one of them, facing the camera directly, was clearly visible. This was the suspect accused of delivering the deepest stab. The time now is exactly 10:00 p.m., which matches the time of the incident, and this bar is still a full 5 kilometers away from Tsushui Alley. The case was forced to restart. Yufeng was taken in for investigation as a key suspect. Despite this, the situation remains far from optimistic. There is not a single piece of physical evidence that can point to Yufeng. Relying solely on witness testimony is far from sufficient. At the same time, the Yu family also launched their offensive, with an article calling for procedural justice beginning to circulate widely. The article argued that prematurely defining Yufeng online was a harmful trend of trial by public opinion, and moreover, given the darkness of the night, it was questionable whether Anlan's stepfather had clearly seen his face. Moreover, given the subtle relationship between Anlan and Yufeng, the stepfather, reluctant to see his stepdaughter in a relationship, might have deliberately slandered Yufeng. Between the lines, it was all about saying that Yufeng had no motive to harm anyone. It wasn't until this moment that the stepfather's second bombshell was dropped. The day after the article was published, a new video emerged. In the video, the stepfather appeared covered in injuries, with the title refuting Yufeng's lack of motive. This video is unprecedented in its scale, revealing everything from Anlan inciting Yufeng to commit murder to Yufeng devising a murder plan for his dubious friends. At the beginning of the video, chat logs between the stepfather and Anlan are also included. "If you dare ruin my relationship again, I'll have someone kill you." In the records, Anlan sent a vicious voice message. Immediately following that are the conversations where Anlan sought help from Yufeng and Yufeng issued his instructions. At the end of the video, Anlan vents her frustration in the hospital room, useless things that can't accomplish anything but only cause trouble. Once the video was released, the entire internet erupted in an uproar, and Anlan and Yufeng faced unprecedented criticism. With the sudden shift in the situation, Anlan was the first to lose her composure. She went mad, screaming and shouting outside the hospital room, demanding to know why her stepfather would do such a thing to her. She even claimed she was just talking, nothing more, just talking. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Whether it was a genuine wish or just empty words, Anlan knew best. Shortly after, Anlan was taken away. Whether her incitement to murder would hold up in court, I couldn't say, but for me, the revenge against Anlan was enough at this point. I personally presented a series of crystal-clear recordings. With these recordings, Anlan's dream of entering the wealthy circle was completely shattered. For her, this was even more devastating than going to prison, but Yufeng wasn't finished yet. Despite being taken away for investigation, he stubbornly clung to one statement: "I was just talking, I didn't do it. You can't arrest me like this." He was brimming with confidence because he knew that the few surveillance cameras that could have captured him at the crime scene had been bought off at a high price by his family. Without physical evidence, he would remain unaffected no matter what, but I've already started looking for his traces. Nothing is done without leaving a trace. That's what my father taught me. I insist on finding evidence that can incriminate him, not for anything else, but for my faith. If I just wanted revenge, I have countless ways to kill him without a trace, but I can't. I am the granddaughter of a chief justice, the daughter of a prosecutor. I cannot bring shame to a family that holds the law above all else. I will use my faith to cut through his deceitful tent step by step, making him personally taste the price of his crimes. I returned to Chushui Lane. By then, the crime scene had been reopened, bustling with people as if nothing had ever happened. I walked along the path Yufeng had taken to escape, all the while thinking about their escape route. There were 7 of them in total, and handling the knives with 7 people would be extremely difficult, given how thorough his thinking was. Throwing them into the moat or the trash, these possibilities were unlikely to exist. What was truly possible was that he took all the knives home and asked his grandfather to handle them. On the day of the incident, I walked home, but as soon as I arrived, his grandfather was already at my house, and he had even finished explaining the reason to be able to act so quickly. It was most likely that he took some form of transportation home. I remembered Yufeng's private car. Following my report, the Yu family's car underwent a thorough inspection from top to bottom, and eventually, a very insignificant drop of blood was found on the carpet. Upon testing, it was confirmed to be the blood of Enlan's stepfather. There was also an unexpected surprise on this trip. The Yu family, fearing the evidence might leak, had actually cleaned those 7 knives and kept them hidden at home. Upon examination, these knives also matched the characteristics of the weapon used to stab Enlan's stepfather. However, the Yu family remained stubborn. According to their lawyer, Yufeng was merely guilty of attempted assault. They just passed by there, saw the scene of the injury, and fled back to the car covered in blood, but they didn't actually do anything. As for who did it, and who the drunken thug was taking the fall for, that's a matter for the police to handle, and he doesn't care. At this point, it seems like all the evidence I had prepared in advance is now useless. Even I'm starting to waver. Could it be that after being reborn with such difficulty, I really have no way to seek revenge without resorting to vigilantism? I gazed at the sky outside the window, lost in confusion. Just then, a beautiful dough figurine was extended before me. Turning around, I saw it was Anlin's stepfather. Seeing me, he smiled. "Look, this is Sun Wukong, your favorite from childhood, Uncle Will. Make another one for you." I took it, feeling even more heavy-hearted. Sun Wukong is the embodiment of punishing evil and promoting good in my heart, but I cannot do it. My uncle seemed to see through my thoughts. "Xiao Qiao, your grandfather once said that as long as someone has done something bad, they will inevitably leave traces. Back then, he helped our family punish that villain in exactly this way. At the time, everyone said, how could someone with such immense power ever be convicted? But in the end, he was. I just never expected that now we would have to trouble you to help as well. But your uncle believes you can do it." After saying that, he felt a bit guilty for not being able to preserve the phone recording. Right, the phone. How could I forget about the phone? Immediately after, my thoughts returned to what Yufeng said on the day he assigned the task. "Xiao Hai, you're responsible for preparing hats and masks for everyone. Don't leave any trace of the purchase." Interesting, hope has arrived. During the first trial, Yufeng and his lawyer insisted that he had never approached the victim. However, when the forensic expert from the evidence department took the stand to testify, he was stunned. The fibers extracted from Enlan's stepfather's wound were identical in material to the hat seized from Yufeng's home. The material for these woolen hats is not available domestically. It comes from overseas. This is thanks to Yufeng's vigilance, since Xiao Hai was very obedient. To avoid leaving any traces, he deliberately avoided online shopping platforms and asked a friend living abroad to make some hats for him. Coincidentally, the elderly person who made the hats had only produced these few in the past 10 years, as they never intended to sell them in the first place. As a result, the suspect was essentially narrowed down to Yufeng and his group of 7. Yufeng had schemed meticulously, intending to use a hat to conceal himself, but he never expected that this hat would become crucial evidence. Additionally, some glove fibers were extracted from Enlan's stepfather's shattered phone. The police traced the seller of these gloves and once again spotted Yufeng in the surveillance footage of the purchaser. With the other 6 accomplices exhausted and having confessed to their crimes, they provided even more details, combining the testimonies and physical evidence. Yufeng's charge of intentional assault was finally confirmed beyond doubt. After the first trial, Yufeng's family still refused to give up and once again showed up at my house. This time, not only Yufeng's grandfather but even his father came to our doorstep. In reality, Yufeng's sentence wasn't particularly long, but for the prestigious Yu family, having a confirmed criminal in the household would completely tarnish their reputation. Yufeng's grandfather trembled as he grasped my grandfather's hand. "Old Jiang, I know you're impartial and incorruptible, but just protect us. This once, just this once, consider it as thanks for saving your life back then. All right, I have cancer now, look at me, don't let me die in humiliation, no matter what, we were classmates once, just protect us this time." He was crying and pleading, and my grandfather's eyes grew moist as well, but he remained firm. "Old Yu, I'm also grateful for your life-saving kindness back then. If it were any other way, I could compensate, I could help. Even now, I could empty my family's savings to treat your illness, but asking me to protect Fenger is impossible. I cannot, nor do I have the authority to do so. If I had protected him, I would have been the one to die in humiliation, along with our teacher, my son, my granddaughter. No one would have been able to face others with dignity." As Grandpa Yufeng disappeared into the sunset, leaning on his cane, I felt a faint sense of sorrow. This might be the last time these 2 old classmates would ever meet. Who wouldn't want to pass away peacefully, to encounter such an unfilial son in one's later years. It's hard for anyone to rest in peace, but this was also a result of his own indulgence. Back then, he had ordered my grandfather to spare young Master Zhang right in front of Yufeng's father, and now, Yufeng's father has also demonstrated the power of authority countless times in front of him from a young age. Yufeng knew that with power, one could control a person, and with influence, one could escape punishment. Their family has always believed in this. When I entered the law school, the teacher asked us why we were there. I said it was to become a prosecutor, but Yufeng just smiled and said, I want to be an official. As long as he gets his diploma from a prestigious university, his future in the officialdom will surely be promising. Just as I was sighing with emotion, another voice suddenly emerged online. This time, it was Yufeng writing to a journalist, saying he wanted to expose something. You always thought there were only 7 of us, but actually there were 8, from the beginning to the end. Jiang Zhiqia knew about it, and she even participated. She just didn't go to the scene in the end. This was the Yu family's last-ditch plan. If begging for mercy from the old master Yu didn't work, then they could only use me as a hostage. I let out a cold laugh. I had anticipated this move from the moment Yufeng tried to drag me to the scene. At Yufeng's second trial, I was also called to the stand, although I was a witness. At that moment, my identity felt more like that of a suspect being interrogated. The Yu family's lawyer aggressively pressed me, trying to establish my role as an accomplice. After that, they aimed to prove that the evidence I provided could have been fabricated or falsified. Even if it doesn't work, we can force my grandfather to step in and help. Facing his question, I smiled slightly. I admit, I knew about this plan from start to finish, but I am not an accomplice, not an accessory, and I did not assist in any way. Facing the nationwide live broadcast, I calmly and confidently laid out the entire timeline. When Enlon sought Yufeng's help in front of us, I started my first recording, ready to provide evidence at any time later. When Yufeng formally notified me and the brothers about carrying out the assassination plan, I recorded again and refused to join on the spot. This can also be proven by my voice recorder. As for the question raised by Yufeng's lawyer, why I didn't try to stop them since I was also at the scene, I have my own response. For an unarmed girl facing 7 gleaming knives and 7 furious men, my first instinct certainly couldn't be to charge forward. I could only call the police. Is that so? He sneered. If you really wanted to save someone, you should have called the police earlier, right? Why did you let things escalate before finally calling? Even if you didn't call the police, you should have tried to stop him. Shouldn't you? Why didn't you intervene at all? This question is simply too easy. From the very beginning, Yufeng insisted that he was just talking casually and had not taken any real action, so if I reported it to the police before anything happened, who would believe me, and who could I stop? All I could do was hire a detective to investigate and Lan's stepfather, warn the stepfather early to prepare, and arrange for someone to protect him at all times. All of this is supported by solid evidence, and this is the best I can do. As for why I didn't stop him, of course I couldn't say it was because I had died once from trying to stop him. I just said calmly, Yufeng and I grew up together. I know his personality very well. When we were kids, he once slapped the nanny twice right in her face because she tried to stop him from skipping school. In middle school, his mother once tried to stop him from playing video games, and he punched her in the jaw. You can easily verify this. If he could do that to someone so close to him, and I'm just an outsider, what would he do to me if I tried to stop him from saving the woman he loves most? I don't even dare to imagine. My counterattack was clear and forceful, and in the end, I undoubtedly gained everyone's trust. The trial has concluded. The second trial verdict still upheld the first trial judgment. Yufeng was guilty. Shortly after the verdict was announced, Yufeng's grandfather passed away. Yufeng was imprisoned and unable to attend his funeral, but I suppose his grandfather wouldn't have wanted to see him anyway. It is worth mentioning that during the second trial, Yufeng and the witness, Enlon, ended up cursing at each other. Yufeng cursed her as a troublemaker when he found out he was just a tool, not even a backup option. Enlon also snapped back, calling him a useless, clingy burden and saying she hadn't misjudged him. She wasn't sentenced because she had only expressed a desire to kill someone and hadn't explicitly asked Yufeng to do it, which didn't amount to incitement, but her dream of marrying into a wealthy family was already shattered, not just because of the stain of suspected incitement, it was also because she would slander others at the slightest disagreement, and this notorious reputation spread everywhere, so no gentleman dared to associate with her anymore. Her family was also in complete disarray. Her stepfather was out of the question, and even her mother had cut off contact with her. Her mother bitterly cursed her for being heartless. saying she was no better than her biological father, and vowed not to leave her a single penny of her inheritance. Her career suffered just as much. No director would dare take the risk of casting such an actress, and her dream of stardom died before it could even begin. Under the weight of multiple blows, Anlin found herself unable to cope alone and could only vent all her anger onto Yufeng. I was just talking. Who told you to take action? How pathetic. However, the argument between the two only lasted until the verdict was delivered. After the second trial, Anlin was diagnosed with AIDS and urgently needed funds for treatment. She thought of Yufeng, who was still in prison. By now, Yufeng had already been disgraced, and no girl would look at him. Back and forth, the two of them confirmed their relationship through letters. Fortunately, Yufeng's grandfather had already passed away earlier. Otherwise he would have suffered another blow before his death, but none of this had much to do with me anymore. My revenge was almost over. My father went to the capital to take up his post. Before leaving, he praised me. Girl, I knew you could do it. Study hard for the exam. You're the hope of our family. By this time, I was already preparing for the bar exam. Unlike in my previous life, I didn't have Yufeng accompanying me on this journey. Instead, I felt that my study efficiency had actually improved. In prison, I saw Yufeng once again. He looked haggard, his once arrogant demeanor long gone. In the prison, he suddenly asked me, Jiang Zhiqiao, have you actually been reborn too? I was a bit surprised. I had thought I was the only one who had been reborn. Yufeng laughed heartily. I never expected that I still couldn't escape your grasp. In my previous life, I killed you in a dog cage, then pretended to be a witness to rescue you, but your father uncovered the truth, had me thrown into prison, and even arranged for other inmates to beat me to death. You Jiang family members are truly ruthless. I interrupted him. My father might only uncover the truth, but ordering someone to beat you to death, he would absolutely never do that. That's the bottom line of our family. I believe in him. Then, under his incredulous gaze, I said coldly, our family does not have the habit of carrying out private punishments. In fact, for my revenge after being reborn, I have 10,000 ways to succeed. I could lock you in a cage and let dogs bite you to death, but I still chose the most troublesome and least hopeful method, to sue you, because I want you to know, using the law, I can still make you pay the price. No one can escape punishment, and neither can you. Through the glass window, Yufeng's expression became very complicated. I don't know what he was thinking. Maybe he still thinks I'm foolish. Not long after, I successfully passed the bar exam. Later, I became a prosecutor, a role I had long aspired to. At the celebration banquet, Anlin's stepfather warmly congratulated me and presented me with a small dough figurine. After the case involving Yufeng, the interactions between our two families became even closer than before. I looked at the Monkey King in my hand. It was vivid and lifelike, exactly the same as the one he had given me when I first met him. Since I was little, every time I felt down, he would bring me various small dough figurines to encourage me to keep going. Unknowingly, Uncle and I have known each other for over 20 years. After Yufeng was imprisoned, his father briefly visited my home once. He couldn't understand why Anlin's stepfather trusted me so much and cooperated with me in various ways. I chuckled to myself upon hearing this. That's all thanks to you. When my uncle was only 6 years old, his father was beaten to death by young Master Zhang. At the time, Judge Jiang Shanhua insisted on pressing charges, but Secretary Yu Minzhong came to intervene. He said, don't press charges, it's better for everyone, and better for the widow and her son too. But Judge Jiang didn't believe this. He helped the mother and son through their toughest times, even sending the little boy to learn the craft of dough figurine making, which he loved, and he eventually became a non-heritage artisan. Later, he started a family, built a career, got divorced, moved away, and remarried. It was only then that we briefly lost touch, but our bond has always remained. That's why he trusts me so much, to uncover the truth and, like my grandfather, send people where they belong. However, this kind of sentiment is something the Yu family simply cannot comprehend. They only believe that there are no eternal friends, only eternal interests. No matter what, my journey is about to begin. Walking the path of my forebears, I have finally realized my own dream. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. My sister-in-law and I were pregnant at the same time. My husband took us to the temple to pray for protective talismans. He specifically reminded me to wear the talisman around my neck every day to ensure the safety of both mother and child. 6 months later, my sister-in-law and I gave birth at the same time. My sister-in-law gave birth to a chubby baby boy weighing 10 pounds, but I gave birth to a monster with no limbs and an anus on its mouth. In a fit of rage, my husband threw the freak to its death. My mother-in-law cursed me as a demon and, together with the whole family, chopped me into pieces to destroy the evidence. My vengeful spirit drifts in the air. Only after death did I realize that the talisman was actually a witchcraft for changing the fetus. Before my sister-in-law became pregnant, she abused cats and poisoned dogs all day long, committing all sorts of evil deeds. She ended up carrying a deformed fetus in her womb. She and her husband gave me a protective talisman, just to take away my healthy unborn child. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at the temple on the day we prayed for blessings. I immediately hung the protective talisman my husband gave me around the neck of a pregnant, rabid dog sister-in-law. It's fate that we're both pregnant at the same time, Big Brother said. The Bodhisattva in the Cloud Temple is especially efficacious. He wants us to go together to get a peace talisman for the child. Sister-in-law Jane held my hand, her face beaming with a smile. It sent shivers down my spine. I suddenly realized that I had actually been reborn. In my previous life, it was also my husband Leo who asked me to accompany Jane to the temple to get a peace charm. Little did I know that it was that small charm that ended up causing me to die without a complete body. Jane and I are 1 year apart in age, and we married into the Wilson family one after the other. During this time, she has always treated me well. In our previous life, Jane and I went to Cloud Temple together and spent a fortune to bring back a talisman for peace. My husband specifically reminded me to keep the talisman close to my chest, saying it was to bless the child with safety. But since then, my body gradually started having problems. Normally, pregnant women's appetites improve after conception. However, I had no interest in normal food, but instead developed a strong craving for raw meat and fresh blood. Moreover, from time to time, dark blood would flow from my lower body. The surface of the belly was covered with dense, bluish spots. They looked like the cadaveric spots of a dead person. Later, my body began to emit a foul odor. A stench started to emanate from my armpits, navel, mouth, and even my ear canals. The smell was like that of a dead cat or a rotten dog. I couldn't sleep well all day. On the day I was about to give birth, my entire body weighed less than 70 pounds. My husband was ashamed of me, so he had my mother-in-law deliver the baby at home. He has pointed at my nose and questioned me more than once. Have you never taken a bath in your life? How did I end up marrying such a disgusting wife? In contrast, my sister-in-law Jane, from the start of her pregnancy, she could eat and sleep well, with a rosy complexion and flawless, delicate skin. It's said that women become less attractive after giving birth, but Jane has been looking more radiant than ever. The most coincidental thing is that Jane became pregnant a full month later than I did, yet we both gave birth on the same day. At the exact same hour, Jane gave birth to a chubby baby boy weighing 10 pounds. That chubby little boy was full of life, with a loud and robust cry, but the one I gave birth to was a monster weighing less than 4 pounds, with a bluish-purple body and an anus where the mouth should be. When my husband Leo saw the child, he was so enraged that he smothered it to death, Jane said in front of my mother-in-law, pretending to be casual. In my hometown, there's a rumor that giving birth to such a deformed fetus is either because the mother fooled around before getting pregnant or because she did too many bad things and is being punished. Sister-in-law, did you secretly do something behind my brother's back? My mother-in-law has always been old-fashioned. Seeing that I gave birth to a monster, they suspected I had moral issues. Fearing it would affect her husband, she took a cleaver and, under the cover of darkness, rushed into the room with her father-in-law. They treated me like an old sow on a chopping board, hacking me into pieces. Then they boiled the remains in a large pot and flushed all the body parts down the drain. After death, my spirit turned into a vengeful ghost, lingering around the Wilson household every day. Only then did I realize that everything was a scheme orchestrated by my husband and Jane. Not only did Jane frequently abuse cats and poison dogs, she also enjoyed hanging out at bars, fooling around with many men. Even after getting pregnant, she still couldn't settle down. Jane and her husband, Leo, had also been having an affair. At 3 months pregnant, the sister-in-law found out that the baby in her womb was a deformed fetus, so she conspired with her husband, using witchcraft disguised as a protective charm. They swapped out the healthy child in my womb. After causing my death, they then drove my parents to their deaths and seized my family's property. From then on, she and the 2 Wilson brothers lived a cozy and content life together. Instead, it was our entire family. We all ended up with our heads separated from our bodies, our bones left unburied. I watched coldly as Jane and the Wilson family stood before me. What goes around comes around. It's just a matter of time. Even fate has given me the chance to personally reduce Jane and the Wilson family to ashes. Seeing me lost in thought, Jane immediately gave my husband Leo a meaningful look. Leo also complained beside me, "Wendy, why are you so inconsiderate? Sister-in-law took you to get a peace charm for the sake of you and our child." Brother-in-law Carl stepped forward to speak. Sister-in Law, Cloud Temple isn't far from our home. I'll drive you there this afternoon. The child of you two is the treasure of our Wilson family. Ha, these two brothers are quite united. No wonder they're real brothers. As close as sharing a pair of pants, they even share the same woman. At this moment, Jane stood by, her eyes brimming with tears of grievance. I know my sister-in-law looks down on me. She is the only child of a city family and comes from a good background, not like me, who grew up in the countryside. But sister-in-law, I'm only thinking about the baby in your womb. The bodhisattva at that Cloud Temple is especially divine. My cousin gave birth last year. She went to the temple and got a protective charm as a result. By the following year, she gave birth to a healthy, chubby baby boy. I didn't say a word the entire time. I just watched Jane and the two Wilson brothers put on their best performance. Back when Jane hadn't yet married into the Wilson family, I had heard that her reputation wasn't very good. This woman comes from a rural background and is a brother-obsessed type. Jane's brother indulges in drinking, gambling, and womanizing, and her father has served time in prison. Jane's biological mother runs a mahjong parlor in the village, playing mahjong with a bunch of shady men every day and even acting as a pimp. It's long been said that Jane makes a living by relying on men. Back then, my mother-in-law's entire family was against letting Jane into the family, but my brother-in-law Carl was determined to marry no one but Jane. On her first visit, Jane behaved quietly and spoke in a soft, muffled voice. At the time, I felt sorry for the girl. I said a lot of good things in front of my mother-in-law. That's how Jane was allowed to enter the family and became my sister-in-law. I never expected that I had helped an ungrateful person facing these three people. I smiled with a slight curl of my lips. Just now, my stomach was a bit uncomfortable, and I didn't react in time. I was just thinking of getting a peace charm for the child too. Let's go, we'll head there now. I reached out and took Jane's hand, then called out to Carl to drive us to Cloud Temple. In no time at all, we arrived at the temple. It's the same old monk from my previous life, handed a peace charm to both me and Jane, although on the surface it looks just like an ordinary piece of red cloth, but inside this red cloth, it contains a child-swapping talisman made from a mixture of ashes and corpse oil of the deceased. If two pregnant women wear it for a long time during their pregnancy, they will unknowingly exchange the children in their wombs. I smiled and took the peace charm. Arriving at the temple entrance, Jane gave me repeated and earnest instructions. Sister-in-law, I heard that this protective charm must be worn around the neck every day. It must not be removed for even a moment. This charm is for the child's well-being. You absolutely must not take it off. Of course. I raised an eyebrow. Jane covered her mouth and giggled again. She and Carl exchanged a glance. I turned to Carl and said, "Brother, take me back to my parents' house later. My mom is sick, and I want to go check on her. Tell my mother-in-law in the evening not to save dinner for me." Carl stepped on the gas and drove me back to my parents' house in the city. I didn't go inside right away. Instead, I watched Carl's car drive off into the distance. I immediately hailed a taxi and went to the shop on the commercial street that sells colorful ropes. I first bought a piece of red cloth, then prepared some incense ash and cooking oil. When I returned to my parents' home, I locked myself alone in the bedroom. Stitch by stitch, I sewed an identical protective charm. Seeing two identical-looking amulets, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. In the evening, I returned to the entrance of my mother-in-law's village. Behind the village, there is an abandoned chemical factory where an elderly couple used to take in many stray cats and dogs. My sister-in-law found the stray dogs too noisy one night. She secretly poisoned them and set a fire, killing many cats and dogs. The elderly couple passed away not long after. The factory is now completely empty. Only 3 or 4 stray dogs were wandering around nearby. Among them was a black Tibetan Mastiff. It was a large female dog. This female dog was usually extremely fierce, and recently it had gone mad, which was why it had been chained up with a heavy iron chain. Usually, when I pass by the chemical plant, I feed these stray dogs. Although that female Tibetan Mastiff is crazy, she remains relatively calm when she sees me. I tiptoed into the factory and fed the stray dogs some sausages. Afterward, I placed the red protective talisman for the child. I secretly attached it to the black Tibetan Mastiff. After doing all this, I returned to Wilson's house. As soon as I entered, I saw the two brothers, Leo and Carl, sitting on the sofa. Jane was sitting between the two of them. Leo's hand is on Jane's leg. Jane's foot is resting on Carl. These two brothers are even feeding grapes to Jane. Seeing me enter the room, Leo immediately stood up in fright. I pretended not to see anything. I deliberately tugged at my collar, letting them see the red string around my neck. Jane noticed the protective amulet hanging from my neck and gave Leo a meaningful look. Leo walked up to me with a serious expression. "Honey, the master said this talisman is very effective. You must keep it." close to your chest and never take it off. In the Wilson family, the firstborn has always been a boy. If anything happens to the child in your womb, I will divorce you." I didn't say a word, just nodded slightly. Suddenly, Jane clutched her lower abdomen and cried out in pain. "Oh my stomach hurts so much. Why does it feel so wrong? Also, my legs are so weak, I can't stand up at all. How could it be right, in that chemical plant? Aside from that female Tibetan Mastiff, additionally, there are a few male wild dogs now. No one takes care of them on a warm and sunny spring day. It's the season for cats and dogs to be in heat. The female dog has an iron chain around her neck, and the pups in her belly are bound to be born in litters." Seeing Jane in pain, both Leo and Carl were thrown into a panic. They hastily carried Jane back to her room, especially Leo, who was so anxious that tears welled up in his eyes. Anyone who didn't know better would have thought Jane was his wife. After a few people entered the room, I heard them whispering softly. Carl said, "It must be the son in her belly causing trouble. The previous one was probably a stillborn. Now that it's been replaced with a living one, it's normal for her stomach to react." I finally breathed a sigh of relief and slowly walked back to my room. Time passed by and Jane had lost a significant amount of weight, yet her belly grew increasingly round. She was only 6 months pregnant, but her stomach was as large as a basket. It looked as if she were carrying 4 or 5 babies. Moreover, she had many bruises on her belly. There was a strong doggy odor coming from her armpits. Even her tastes had changed a lot every day. She either gnawed on bones or stared at the fresh cow dung at the village entrance, drooling. Instead, I had a rosy complexion and a normal appetite. Even my skin had become much smoother. Every time Jane went to steal cow dung, she would stare at me with a venomous look in her eyes. "Sister-in-law, I've noticed that you don't seem to be uncomfortable at all since you got pregnant." I deliberately propped my chin on my hand and pretended to be concerned. "I don't know what's going on, but I don't feel anything in my belly at all. In the first 2 months, I was always nauseous and felt like vomiting. My mom says, the more severe a woman's pregnancy symptoms are. Do you think there's something wrong with the baby in my belly? Should I go to the hospital for a checkup?" Hearing me say this, Jane finally smiled smugly. "Sis, you're just overthinking it. Going to the hospital is just a waste of money." As she spoke, she gently stroked her own belly. "Well, in my opinion, the most important thing is still to have a son. After all, only a son can carry on the family line. Sister-in-law, don't you think that makes sense?" I deliberately sighed with faint sadness. "As for me, I don't ask for that much. What does it matter if it's a son or a daughter? As long as the child is healthy, I'll be at peace." In the dead of night, I realized my husband Leo wasn't lying beside me. I quietly approached Jane's door and heard her and Leo whispering inside. "Leo, do you think that peace charm really works? Why do I feel like my stomach has been acting up more and more lately?" Jane's voice was full of anxiety. Leo comforted her. "Don't worry, Jane, that old man is quite skilled. Didn't your cousin's child come from him? Besides, haven't you had a good appetite lately? It's clear you're carrying a healthy, chubby baby boy." Jane sighed, "But I just can't shake this uneasiness. I've been getting a lot of bruises lately, and I feel like I'm getting uglier." Leo's lecherous, unrestrained laughter. "My darling, you are the apple of my. No matter how you change, I will only love you." Listening outside the door, I was terrified, and eventually, I felt physically nauseous. I never would have imagined that the man lying beside me on the pillow every day was actually a beast in human skin. The next day, I went to the hospital alone, using the excuse of returning to my parents' home. After a thorough examination, the doctor told me, "The baby is perfectly healthy. My physical condition is also very good. Don't worry too much." I was secretly pleased, but also became more cautious day by day. Jane's belly grew bigger, while mine showed no significant change. Jane always deliberately provoked me in front of me. "Sister-in-law, you're just over a month away from giving birth. Looking at your belly, it doesn't seem to be growing much. Not like me, my belly is round, and my navel is pointing upward. It's obvious I'm carrying a son." And I always deliberately sigh and complain, pretending that I'm not feeling well. Every morning, I would also deliberately put on a haggard makeup look. Jane looked at my sickly appearance all day and felt even more pleased. In no time, just 1 more month, and Jane and I will be in the active phase. That day happened to be my father-in-law's 70th birthday. Many relatives came to our rural home. The courtyard was fully set up with 6 tables. Even my parents came carrying fruits and red envelopes, come to wish my father-in-law a happy birthday. That day, Jane, with her big belly, was bustling around the courtyard, looking every bit the lady of the house. I sat aside, pretending to feel unwell. Occasionally, I would hold my waist and rub my stomach, eliciting sighs of sympathy from the crowd. "Look at old Wilson's eldest daughter-in-law. Her face is as pale as a ghost. Could there be Something wrong with the baby in her belly. Yeah, they say pregnant women these days are more prone to amniotic fluid embolism. The baby could easily end up stillborn. Yeah, this daughter-in-law doesn't look energetic at all. I bet the baby in her belly isn't healthy either. The more others gossip about me, the more excited Jane gets. She pretends to compare children with me every day, but I know what's really on her mind. What Jane is concerned about is my family's property. She had long discussed with Leo that once I gave birth to a deformed fetus, they would find a way to kill me. In this way, Leo, as my husband, could openly inherit the family fortune. After the banquet began, Jane deliberately went back to her room to change into a vest dress. Dressed up like a colorful butterfly, she would sit at one table for a while, then chat at another. Suddenly, a relative covered their nose with a hand and raised an eyebrow to ask, "Did you smell something? Why does it feel so stinky to me?" Ever since I put the talisman on that female dog, Jane's body emits a foul odor every day. That smell is like a dead dog soaked in a cesspool. It continuously oozes from Jane's armpits and navel. And now, with just 1 month left, both of us are about to give birth. Jane's hair and even her mouth began to emit a foul odor. Jane was reluctant to spend money on a hospital checkup. She searched online. It said that some women, due to the effects of estrogen, may indeed develop a stronger body odor after becoming pregnant. Jane began to spray a large amount of perfume on herself every day. Normally, the scent of the perfume could still mask the odor on Jane's body. She had just changed into a sleeveless top, and the smell could no longer be concealed. Almost all the relatives at the meal noticed it. Some relatives were suspicious. "There's no stinky tofu soup in this meal. Why is there a strange smell?" Suddenly, someone realized the smell was coming from Jane. "Oh Jane, how many days has it been since you last showered? That's disgusting." Jane was still trying to justify herself. "What do you know? It's because of the changes in estrogen during pregnancy that a woman's body odor becomes stronger." But as soon as Jane started speaking, the relatives sitting next to her immediately covered their noses with their hands. "Oh my God, Jane, did you not brush your teeth either? Your breath is really strong." "Yes. You must have something wrong with your mouth. Don't tell me it's oral cancer." Most of my father-in-law's relatives are villagers. Their hearts are kind. The words spoken were indeed somewhat unpleasant. Jane's expression turned rather sour because of them, but that indescribable foul odor, like a tangible smoke, permeated the entire courtyard. At this moment, a displeased look also appeared on the father-in-law's face as he glared at Jane. My father-in-law is usually very concerned about face. On his big birthday, his daughter-in-law's strange smell became the talk of the whole village. It was utterly humiliating. Jane couldn't sit still any longer. She made an excuse, saying she needed to get some fresh air, so she stood up and hurried to the courtyard gate. Just then, the female Tibetan Mastiff from the factory somehow broke free from its chain and ran out of the factory. Jane stood at the courtyard gate sulking. Suddenly, she noticed that the mad dog had a red talisman for safety hanging around its neck. Jane suddenly caught on. She let out a startled cry. Turning her head, she shouted the names of the Leo brothers. "Leo, Carl, come over here quickly. What's that hanging around that dog's neck?" Leo and Carl, hearing Jane's shout, put down their bowls and chopsticks in confusion. They looked in the direction Jane was pointing and saw a rabid dog running through the village, and around that rabid dog's neck was a strikingly bright red protective charm. Isn't that Wendy's protective charm?" Leo's eyes flickered, as if he had realized something. Jane's face turned pale, and she said in a trembling voice, "Wendy, it was all you're doing, wasn't it? Since this matter can no longer be hidden, there's no need for me to keep it a secret." I slowly stood up and walked over to Jane, a cold smile curling at the corner of my mouth. "I see that dog is pregnant too, and there's no one to take care of her. It's so pitiful. Since this is just an ordinary peace charm, what's wrong with using it to protect the mother dog?" Jane widened her eyes, looking at me in disbelief. Her legs began to tremble, followed by a burst of sobbing. It's all over. It's all over." Leo also glared at me fiercely with a vicious look in his eyes. "Wendy, you don't fucking want to live anymore, do you? Why did you put the talisman that little Jane gave you on the dog?" I sneered at him, not afraid to tear up the relationship. "What's wrong? Is there something to say? Or is there some special meaning behind this talisman? Leo, you're really something. Wanting to divorce me for the sake of your brother's wife. Do you want to spill all the good deeds you've done in front of the whole village today? Whose child is it in Jane's belly?" I was still in a war of words with Leo. The relatives on the scene, unaware of the situation, all tried to mediate. "Oh, what's the big deal about a lousy charm? Leo, your wife is still heavily pregnant. Don't be so unreasonable." Leo gritted his teeth in anger, but with so many relatives present, including many elders from the same village, he had to hold back. He didn't dare to say much more. He could Only searched the entire yard for a shovel, ready to go after that mad dog. It didn't take long. Leo and Carl, the two brothers, were holding shovels, rushing out of the yard in a hurry. At this moment, Jane was also shouting nearby to Leo and Carl, "Quickly bring that red talisman back." But this bitch isn't so easy to deal with. Chained up in an abandoned factory for over a year every day, I was hungry and starving. Covered in mange all over my body. Most importantly, this was a Tibetan Mastiff, weighing nearly 100 pounds, a large dog, and it had a mad disease. The mother dog saw Jane shouting and screaming. A fierce glint flashed in its eyes, as if seeking revenge on her. It turned around and charged straight at her. Jane was so frightened that she turned pale and fell to the ground in a panic. Leo quickly shouted, brandishing the shovel in his hand, shielding Jane, and fiercely struck at the mad dog, but the mad dog was agile. Dodging the attack with a swift sidestep, in retaliation, it bit down directly on Leo's arm. Blood instantly stained Leo's sleeve. He cried out in pain, and the shovel in his hand fell to the ground. Carl, seeing this, turned pale with fear, but he dared not retreat. Suppressing his terror, he swung the shovel and continued to attack the mad dog. The mad dog, however, seemed to have gone completely insane, lunging at Carl recklessly. Its sharp claws left a deep gash on his chest. It all happened in just a few minutes. Leo and Carl, the two brothers, were bitten into a bloody mess by that Tibetan Mastiff. The mad dog had completely lost its mind, tearing and snarling. The scene was chaotic, and the relatives were all terrified, fleeing in all directions. Jane was crying and screaming on the side, her voice distorted. "Wendy, it's all your fault. It's all because of you." She then casually grabbed another elderly man. "What are you looking at? Hurry up and go. Go fight the dog." The man, in his 50s, is a distant cousin of my father-in-law. The old man was so scared that his legs trembled uncontrollably. "Didn't you see? This dog has gone mad. Whoever wants to go, go ahead. I'm not going." In the end, it was my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law saw that both of her sons had been bitten by the dog. She turned and went back to the room, heading to the kitchen to grab a kitchen knife. Then she charged forward, ready to fight the mad dog to the death. In my previous life, it was my mother-in-law who, wielding a kitchen knife, hacked me to death. Now, she was doing the same thing. The kitchen knife sliced through the air with a cold glint. The mad dog dodged to the side, but its tail was still cut off at the tip. It yelped in pain and became even more frenzied. Seizing the opportunity, the mother-in-law struck again, this time slashing the mad dog's neck. Blood gushed out, staining the ground red. The dog was dead. Just then, Jane suddenly let out a scream. Immediately after, she clutched her neck with both hands and fell to the ground, staring blankly. Within just a few minutes, the Wilson family's two sons were severely injured by a dog bite. The younger daughter-in-law inexplicably fainted. Everyone scrambled to call an ambulance. Taking advantage of the chaos, I grabbed my parents' arms. "Mom, Dad, let's go home." 1 month later, at the private hospital, I gave birth to a chubby baby boy weighing over 8 pounds. Mother and child are safe. Everything went smoothly. Meanwhile, the Wilson family was in for a rough time. I heard that Jane was rushed to the hospital and immediately went into labor. In the end, the doctors performed a cesarean section on her. They actually delivered a total of 5 children by cesarean section. Those children had dog heads and human bodies. The heaviest one weighed just over a pound. They were all stillborn. Even more bizarrely, Jane was also diagnosed with rabies, but she clearly wasn't bitten by a rabid dog that day. Everyone was utterly baffled. Jane gave birth to 5 monsters, and even 2 of the medical staff assisting the delivery fainted from shock. When my in-laws found out about this, they collapsed to the ground on the spot, their faces deathly pale. The shocking news quickly spread among the neighbors, and everyone was talking about it. Eventually, all the shady things Jane had done were exposed by everyone. Some even managed to take scandalous photos of Jane at the nightclub. It was said that Jane took on 5 at once and had a particular preference for black men. Overnight, the Wilson family became the talk of the entire village. Whoever saw my in-laws would always say something sarcastic. "Oh, I heard your second daughter-in-law gave birth to quintuplets, but are those 5 grandsons of yours black or yellow?" Some people also said, giving birth to a puppy. Could it be that she was impregnated by a dog? Jane was soon taken back home by her in-laws. However, it was said that just a few days later, she fell into the river and drowned, and her body was never recovered. No one really knows how Jane died. After all, in my past life, my in-laws also told outsiders that I had gone to the river alone in the middle of the night and was swept away by an undercurrent. After Jane's death, the troubles in the Wilson family still didn't settle down. Both Leo and Carl, the 2 brothers, were badly injured by that stray dog. Carl's face had a chunk of flesh bitten off by that mad dog, disfiguring him. Leo had it even worse. It said that the mad dog bit off his manhood. It was mangled, bloody, and beyond repair. In the blink of an eye, my son has reached his first month. I gave this hard-won child the name Andy. The name is simple, and its meaning is simple too. In this lifetime, I only wish for my child to be safe and sound. About 2 more months passed. Leo was finally discharged from the hospital. The first thing he did after being discharged was to remember me, his wife. That day, my mother was in the kitchen making Christian carp soup for me. My father was holding his grandson in the living room, reluctant to let go for a long time. Leo suddenly showed up at the door with a basket of milk and fruit. As soon as he stepped inside, he said he wanted to take me back home. At that moment, I rolled my eyes and looked down at Leo from above. Go home with you? Go back for what? To live as a widow? I've already filed for divorce in court. You're not welcome in my home. Upon hearing this, Leo's face contorted with emotion. Divorce? On what grounds do you want a divorce? What have I, Leo, ever done to wrong you? Now that I'm physically disabled, you just want to kick me to the curb. Wendy, have you no shame? As he spoke, he tried to move closer to me, but my mother blocked him with her body. My mother held a rice scoop and said in a sarcastic tone, Leo, do we really need to spell it out for you? How exactly did your sister-in-law die? And what's the deal with the protective charm on the mad dog's neck? Should we have a good talk about it today? Upon hearing this, Leo's eyes flickered uncertainly, as if he was trying hard to avoid the question. I don't know what you're talking about. What does my sister-in-law's death have to do with me? He tried to defend himself, but his trembling voice betrayed him. Get out, Leo. Wait for the court summons. Leo's eyes rolled around in their sockets. Suddenly, he shamelessly shouted, Wendy, I can divorce you, but the marital property should be divided, right? I know you have 2 commercial properties under your name also. When we got married, my family paid a full $80,000 as a bride price. You have to return that money. You also need to compensate me for emotional damages, at least $500,000. I can't be bothered to argue with this kind of scoundrel. My dad was so angry he kept scratching his head. In the end, we had to call the property management to finally kick Leo out. After Leo was driven away, our family finally had a few peaceful days. During this time, I have been busy taking care of the children and handling the divorce proceedings. Leo, on his part, was not to be outdone. He repeatedly harassed me with phone calls, demanding that I share the property with him. Soon after, Leo suddenly started a live stream online. He cried online about me abandoning my husband and also slandered me, accusing me of marriage fraud. In Leo's live video, he portrayed himself as extremely wronged. Ever since my wife married me, she has been either hitting or scolding me every day. She always yells about wanting a divorce. 3 months ago, to protect my pregnant wife, I was bitten by a rabid dog in the village. I was hospitalized for a full 3 months. My wife never once came to the hospital to see me. I truly never expected this. I loved her with all my heart, but my wife was actually scheming against me from the very beginning. Leo's livestream didn't make much of a splash. The highest number of viewers was only a few hundred. However, I secretly followed Leo with a burner account and then spent money to get him a recommendation. After all, if you want to destroy someone, first make them arrogant. I spent over $5,000 in just 2 days. Leo's video views exceeded over 100,000. His followers also grew to more than 30,000. Gradually, many extreme fans dug up my name and address. Someone photoshopped a memorial photo of me online. Someone even sent a wreath to my house and threw a dead rat at my doorstep. I silently recorded all of this with my phone. I compiled it as evidence and handed it over to my lawyer. Leo saw his video go viral online. He proudly called me with his new phone card. Wendy, how about that? This is what you get for dumping me. I'm telling you, if you obediently come back and serve me on your knees every day, I'll keep living with you. Otherwise, I'll ruin your reputation and make sure you never have a moment's peace. Leo roared on the phone, his tone full of arrogance and threat. I listened to his roar, yet my heart remained utterly calm. Looking at the clear, cloudless sky outside the window, I knew this storm had to end. That very night, I compiled several video clips and posted them all online. Actually, when I was making that fake baby swapping talisman, I had already bought over a dozen miniature cameras at the mall. I installed these cameras in every corner of my mother-in-law's house. During that time, the cameras captured all the shocking events happening in Wilson's family. Leo secretly got out of bed in the middle of the night, left my side, and walked into Jane's room. The most important thing was that Jane was still lying in the same bed with Carl at the time. The 3 of them were in high spirits, dominating the scene, including how Jane and Leo conspired to secretly swap the child in my womb. They also planned to kill me after I gave birth, take advantage of my family's extinction, and monopolize my family's wealth. Those vivid and explicit videos, although I have pixelated their faces, their true identities can still be discerned, and among these videos, there is one that is the most explosive. It is the truth about Jane's death. How could a perfectly healthy woman, who had just given birth and was in confinement at home, mysteriously disappear by the river? The hidden cameras clearly captured my father-in-law holding a hemp rope. My mother-in-law was holding a meat cleaver. How did this elderly couple treat their second daughter-in-law? The scene of Jane's miserable death in this life is even more shocking than in my previous one. Her mouth was stuffed with coal cinders. My mother-in-law even turned into an executioner. Employing the 10 great tortures of the Qing dynasty, every scene was horrifying to witness. Those videos were like sharp knives, completely tearing off the hypocritical masks of the Wilson family. When these videos were posted online, they quickly caused a huge uproar. The police immediately launched an investigation, and based on the video evidence I provided, they soon arrested Leo's parents. My parents-in-law were sentenced to death with a 2-year reprieve for crimes including intentional homicide and desecration of a corpse, and the divorce case between Leo and me, due to all the evidence I provided, ended with the expected outcome as I had hoped. The court ruled that Leo and I are divorced. Custody of the child is awarded to me. Everything, for now, has settled down briefly. Several more months passed. It was actually Carl who took the initiative to find me. Carl knelt before me, pleading desperately, "Sister-in-law, I beg you, could you lend me some money? I have no family left in this world, sister-in-law. No one is willing to help me. I can only come to beg you." Carl told me that after his parents were arrested, that scoundrel Leo sold the rural house, took all the family's savings, and fled abroad alone. In my previous life, Leo and I were married for a lifetime. I know his character. He is selfish and self-centered. He is indeed capable of doing such a despicable and wicked thing. At this moment, Carl is penniless, his parents are in prison, and his wife is dead. Jane's parents and younger brother searched far and wide for Carl, demanding that he pay with his life for their daughters, or else compensate them with money. Where would Carl get the money? None of the relatives paid him any attention. The company also fired him. Carl was like a begging dog, kneeling at the entrance of my residential complex, clinging to my leg. "Sister-in-law, I was wrong. I know you have money." Jane and her whole family are scoundrels. Her brother carries a knife every day, blocking my way everywhere. He said if I don't compensate their family with 1 million, he'll make me pay for Jane's life. I coldly watched the Carl in front of me. He was also one of the murderers who plotted against me in my past life. Carl also told me, he said that the idea to use a child-swapping talisman to take the child from my womb was entirely Leo's plan. The monk at Cloud Temple was not originally an old monk from the temple. Instead, he was an old man from the neighboring village who pretended to be one. The old man had some skills, but his intentions were not pure. He only worked for the wealthy, and as long as there was profit to be gained, he would do things that harmed others. The boss of Leo Company was at that old man's place, hired a little ghost amulet, which then caused his wife to suffer from a nervous breakdown and be admitted to a psychiatric hospital. The boss of Leo's company successfully exploited a family with no male heir, and during a drinking team-building event, he proudly shared these stories, which Leo overheard. It was then that Leo remembered my family also had money. He planned to follow the same method to harm me and make a huge profit. Since everything is clear now, I don't need to be polite with them anymore. I gave Carl $200, saying that was all I had on hand for now, and asked him to wait for me at the coffee shop across the street. At the same time, I called Jane's family and reported Carl's whereabouts to them. Not long after that, Carl had one of his legs broken by the enraged James family. From then on, he could only beg on the streets with a broken bowl. After that, I found the father-in-law and mother-in-law of the boss of Leo Company. The boss of Leo Company is surnamed Duncan, named Harry Duncan, and was originally a live-in son-in-law. He bought a Buddha amulet from the old man, and now his wife is suffering from neurasthenia. She has been receiving treatment in a mental hospital for years. The company is also entirely under his control. However, the chairman of the company is still Harry Duncan's father-in-law. I compiled some information and anonymously informed his in-laws about Harry Duncan's purchase of the Buddha amulet. Harry Duncan's father-in-law holds immense power and is a well-known entrepreneur in our city. His company has already gone public. He immediately investigated the evidence and first dealt with his son-in-law. Soon after, I heard that he spent a fortune to hire an expert to break the spell of the amulet. Even his daughter's illness was cured along with it. Harry Duncan's father-in-law naturally didn't let the old man off either. Within a few days, it was heard that the shop where the old man worked mysteriously caught fire. The old man was burned to death in the shop, becoming a charred corpse. Not only that, but someone also discovered 7 sandalwood nails inside the old man's body. These nails were driven into the joints of the corpse, the top of the head, shoulders, hands, and feet. Some Knowledgeable people said that the old man's soul had been completely shattered. From now on, the old man has vanished without a trace, unable to be reincarnated for all eternity. Almost everyone who harmed me in my past life has faced retribution, only Leo is the exception. Sometimes, I still feel hatred in my heart. In my previous life, I must have been blind to have married a beast like Leo. It's a pity. Why is heaven so blind? It just let Leo escape, taking so much wealth and running off to live abroad. However, as the child gradually grows up, the hatred in my heart has lessened a bit. One must always look forward. You cannot live in the hatred of the past forever. When my son was 8 years old, he started elementary school that same summer. My son's school had its summer break. I took the child, along with my parents. The whole family went on a trip to a certain country in Thailand. There, we watched a vase show. Inside the vase was a person. The person had no hands or feet, and their large body was crammed into a slender vase. This person was none other than Leo, the one I had been longing for and often dreamed about. Leo was tortured beyond recognition, turned into a human pig, and put on display everywhere. Even his waste had to be disposed of in that tiny bottle. The tour guide from Thailand told us people in such bottles rely on antibiotics to survive. Every day alive is an immense agony. However, most don't survive beyond 3 months. After watching the exhibition show, the four of us walked out silently. My mood suddenly brightened. It turns out that heaven has eyes. Evil people will be punished by fate. Leo also received the deserved retribution. I looked up and gazed at the azure sky. The sky was clear and boundless, and a